I'd like to call to order the Metropolitan School District of Washington Township School Board meeting for August 28th, 2024. Let the record show that 4 members are present and 1 absent. And we will start, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda is School Spotlight True North. Mrs. Zybert.
Thank you. Good son. All of them. All right. You got. Oh, that's you. Awesome. Well, good evening, Dr. Woodson, President Turner, members of the board, and Washington Township School community. I am Suzanne Zybert, the very proud administrator, principal at True North Academy. It's an honor to be here this evening highlighting and spotlighting True North Academy. As we take a look at things, there are so many things to celebrate, and I could have gone on and on, but I know they told me 1 slide, so I stuck to it. But as I look at the points of pride, things I want to highlight with our staff is the fact that we are collaborators. We collaborate on curriculum development, grant writing, and PLC leadership. When I look at our curriculum development, our teachers, many of them are math teachers, are teaching 7 different preps. So their curriculum development can't just be out of the textbook. It's truly what each individual kid needs. So a lot of curriculum development and a lot of curriculum development with our school counselor. She is in there supporting the academic rigor of pieces and counseling students, but also supporting the social emotional side of things, as well as what are kids going to do after they graduate from high school. So a lot of curriculum development, and then that is all guided through our PLCs. I'm very proud to say that our PLC leaders are doing exceptional things, not just in my eyes, but also in the eyes of our consultants that we work with. It's always nice when you see that dittoing of what you see and somebody else comes in and takes a look at it and they see the same thing. So very proud of our leadership there. We do an amazing job of fostering equitable opportunities within and beyond the classroom. I think many times people think, oh, wow, my students at True North, they're going to go to school and go home. But no, we have clubs, we have events, we have service projects. Today, we just confirmed a group of students who will be starting lunch buddies at Nora Elementary School, our group that will be returning to the Early Learning Center so that they can provide support as extra hands at the Early Learning Center. And then we have a couple of young men who are partnering with an outreach group at the Jordan YMCA to do a winter coat drive. So again, our students are doing things within and beyond the classroom. Our staff, they're relentless. Failure is not an option. When you come to True North, students don't come to True North to drop out, to fall behind. They come to True North to graduate high school. So our teachers make sure that they are working relentlessly. And with that comes that unconditional love, that unconditional just determination. Everything is unconditional because of what they are doing to save lives every day. So just amazing, amazing staff. Our students, the data says it all. The last few years, we've been 14% of the graduation rate at North Central High School. That means when you look at the graduation rate, 14% of those students are coming from True North. Even more exciting, we aim for the highest diploma possible, the Core 40. That's where that rigor comes in. 101 diplomas out of the 114, and we have 2 more that are about to come across the finish line here in a couple of days. But they're Core 40 diplomas. And very exciting, 0 waivers. Yeah, not 1 waiver. That's why that's in that nice red bold. We worked really diligently to make sure our students stay in their CTE classes. And if that was not a good fit, how can we get those pathway classes on Edmonton? So very, very exciting. And then taking a look at, okay, well, they're getting their high school diploma. Okay, that's it. They're probably just sitting on the couch. No. When you look at what happens after True North, 61% of our kids are in employment. 35% of our kids are continuing their education in one capacity or another, which is awesome. And then 4% are enlisting in the military. Some of the kids are doing all three. So again, very, very exciting to see that we're not just getting a high school diploma, but we're really pursuing something after high school graduation. And then how are we doing all this with our students? It's North Central High School, JEL, and True North all coming together, and our students are developing into being productive citizens of society. So back to those opportunities within and beyond the classroom, we are providing that to the students. So very exciting. And then looking at our school community, who we are. I know I've said this every year. It used to be I have to go to True North. Now I get to go to True North, or can I go to True North? This is year number 10. When you look at the class of 2025, it will be our 10th cohort to graduate. So again, obviously we're doing great things in the community. And then looking at student opportunities, I kind of alluded to what our teachers were doing within and beyond the classroom, but we have students that are not only achieving their academic success, but they're also participating in the arts, the performing arts, such as Counterpoints. We have students that are in athletic programs. I have a young lady who's cheering right now at an HBCU and getting her degree in nursing. So again, our students come to us, they participate in things within and beyond the classroom with academics, athletics, the arts, leadership, and employment. And then our evolving partnerships. One thing I really highlighted the other day on our site visit, it's great to have that financial piece, but that human capital, our partner that we're highlighting tonight, they bring in that human capital piece, those individuals who can sit side by side with our students, with our staff, with our families, with our caregivers, and provide that human capital, which is priceless. And there's just not enough of that to go around. And then our comprehensive school counseling program. We are in year number 4 of having a school counselor that was made possible as a result of the referendum. With that and those additional dollars that we were able to put towards staffing, but we not only have a school counselor, we're really working towards developing that comprehensive program that is reflective of those ASCA standards and what we want all school counselors to be doing. It's more than just saying, these are the classes that you need to take, but how can I help you to be successful within the classroom, beyond high school, academically, socially, emotionally, that employ, that educate, that enlist, but not just in the office, but in the classrooms as well. Mrs. Meng this year has already been out and about in classrooms doing classroom lessons with the students. So they are seeing her in all folds of life. So very proud of what we're doing as a school community. And then as you go on to that, focusing on equitable achievement and just the progress. Again, failure is not an option. When I look at our discipline practices and what we're doing to keep kids in school, and again, some things are zero tolerance. We understand that if a kid is involved in an infraction that does warrant time out of school, we have put practices in place, restorative practices that are continuing to support our kids. So while they may be working from home, they know that every Thursday night, they're going to get a call from Mrs. Eibert, and we are going to progress monitor what you're working on. Or Mrs. Wright will be checking in with them on a Monday morning, or somebody else, such as the school counselor or another staff member, will be checking in. So we've really making sure that we are taking care of them, whether they're in school or out of school, and responding to, just that progress monitoring, holding everybody accountable. And again, saving lives and keeping students engaged and ultimately earning a high school diploma. Doing a lot of great things. Last year alone, 2,895 credits. That's a lot of credits. And it's not just Edmentum. Another highlight of what we're doing is we are that blended program. Many programs around the country that are like True North, they have 4 teachers watching 50 kids on computers all day doing computer generated classes. They're getting great results or good results, but we get great results. We are developing that whole child because we have teachers that are helping us to get those credits. It's a blended learning model with teacher-led instruction, not just computer-based instruction. And then again, I highlighted already the fact that we have the Core 40 diplomas and the 0 waivers that we're extremely, extremely proud of. And again, looking at that productive citizen in society, our random acts of kindness. Each year we do a little competition. It's been so fun to see the students out of the gate this year working to earn a random act of kindness, holding a door open. I had a young lady grab the spray bottle in the cafeteria the other day, start squirting the tables as we're cleaning them, just going above and beyond for the betterment of not just themselves, but other people along the way. So we really take great pride in that. And then taking a look at just, that areas for continued growth. We want to make sure that we continue to have the right size and the right schedule for students. We have students that come to us in the morning, students that come to us in the afternoon, but I also have already discovered over the course of time that a few kids need a swing shift. I call it a swing shift because I come from a factory community and there was always a swing shift. So I have some kids that come in from 10 to 2 or 10 to 1. We can be flexible with that, but now we're also exploring that later in the daytime because we have some students that if I had to pick between a high school diploma and working a construction job and making $22 an hour, I'm going to pick $22 an hour. But that doesn't mean I don't want to get my diploma. So how can we be creative and flexible in our scheduling? And again, that non-traditional student in that non-traditional setting. And that continuing to examine what we're doing with 9th and 10th graders. I was bragging about our 11th and 12th grade curriculum, which we've done a great job of, but then how do we get those 9th and 10th graders that come to us to have that rigor, that relevance that they need so they not only can be successful with us, but they can have the tools they need to go back to the high school if that's the right fit and be ready to do what they want to do, what they need to do. And again, I think we're continuing to look at those 3 E's for our the 12th graders of what are they going to do when they graduate. Again, maximizing our partnerships and resources. I already alluded to our human capital, but then also really just building upon the resources that we do have available out there for our students so that when they graduate, they have the tools, they have the skill set that they need to be successful. Again, rigor and relevance, you can't have enough of that. I take great pride in our blended learning model, but are we getting the kids what they need? Are we going deep enough, wide enough? Are we looking at it from all lenses? Are they able to tell you what they're doing and why they are doing it? Again, looking at daily operations, just continuing to examine through that, lens of food service, record keeping, safety, staffing, transportation, and time, just really looking at all the things that go on behind the scenes so that we can make sure that the students are ready to learn. I had a young man today, he has been sleeping. He's had a lot on his mind. He had 4 amazing chicken sandwiches at lunch and he was awake all afternoon. I think food is the answer and it's taken us 14 days to figure that out. He told me at the end of the day what he wanted tomorrow and we're going to work to see what makes it happen. But again, it takes all of that, analyzing that data, that time with that kid, having a staff member that can sit with that individual kid. And again, at the end of the day, making sure he has the access to the resources that he needs. And then that ongoing collaboration, I cannot highlight enough. I think in all my time in this program, looking at the partnership that I have with Brian Funk, with Jagger Rent, and True North Academy, the 3 of us, we are truly a campus. We are a team. Our communication, our key messages says that, it shows that. And it's an emotional moment for me because I love what I do. I've always loved what I do. But again, North Central, JEL, and True North, we can't do it alone. It takes all 3 of us working together and working to develop the right program with the right fit. And then I tell the kids the golden ticket. We're your golden ticket when you come over from the high school, but JEL is also a golden ticket for you because you need those 6 hours at the Career Center for the game of getting that diploma, but also for that trade after high school. So again, just the ongoing collaboration. We're doing great things, but we can't stop there. We have to be ready for that redesign of that new diploma and also just making sure that our kids are ready for what the future has waiting for them. And then promising practices. Some of these I've already alluded on, but this is year number 10 when you look at the class of 2025. So pretty exciting. I can't believe it's year number 10, cohort number 10. The blended learning models. When I look at our Elevate framework, today I sit in a classroom and I was watching a lesson that was being done utilizing our Elevate framework. And again, it was so fun to take those data pieces and then take it into another classroom just to kind of analyze and compare and contrast. So we're doing a great job with that. The utilization of student and staff data to not only celebrate, we had a previous superintendent in this district who always reminded us we need to celebrate, we need to do great things, but what are you going to do tomorrow if you're going to keep going on from there? So again, taking that action. Our comprehensive school, counseling program, so many possibilities there. The professional learning opportunities, it is so great to be able to partner with the coaches at North Central to make sure that we're not only going to that PD, but we see practices in place. A great example of that is the literacy that's happening across the curriculum. I talked about that in our PLC this morning. My math teachers and their vocabulary development. The number of kids that we have that are engaged in novels deeply for the first time. So that literacy is happening in the language arts classes, in the English classes, but it's happening in social studies, it's happening in math. I never thought I would see my 2 math teachers with word walls that were color-coded like a kindergarten classroom. It's pretty powerful, very, very powerful. And then again, the collaboration, I already said, that includes grade level support teams, but also progress monitoring. I'm in ongoing communication with Mr. Funk about how students are doing in welding, how they're doing in culinary, to make sure that we keep them where they need to be. Growing our partnerships for the human as well as the financial capital, and then remaining as dynamic as the needs of our community. That's where that human capital pieces come into play. Some of our new partnerships with Lamplighters, some of the work we're doing with Outreach, who we are recognizing tonight, our upcoming work that we're doing with Reach, with Simon Youth. That's, right there in the whole, like the impetus of what's getting ready to happen. It's just all about that human capital as well as that financial. So pretty excited about that. And then our special recognitions. So we have so many amazing students at North Academy. It is an honor for us to recognize tonight Miss Soraya Moore. She is here and she is going to come up. Honey, you can come on up. Soraya is one of those individuals that she makes every single person around her a better person. This is her 2nd year at True North Academy. She is enrolled in the cosmetology program at the J. Everett Light Career Center. She also is employed as a swim instructor at the Jordan YMCA. But above and beyond that, she is that person who makes sure that everybody's ready to do what they need to do every day. She will check in with me when I'm running around cleaning tables, picking up trash in the cafe. Ms. Zybert, you okay? You sure? Can you need a hug? Lean in here, give me a hug. And she will make sure that you're okay, or she will come to me and say, hey, have you checked in on so-and-so? So she truly is just that advocate for everybody and takes care of herself along the way. She was just talking about getting her driver's license soon. So we are so proud of her. She is going to go on and just do great, great things. So thank you, Soraya. Nice. Our next individual, or individuals I should say, are the Meals family. Unfortunately, they were unable to be with us tonight. She not only has 1 sick kid at home, but 3 now. And she was doing her best to get here, but that is why she is such an amazing mom and such an advocate for True North, and just her support of students in the program and doing what we need to have happen. And so just always that voice that follows up, lets us know what we're doing great, but she will also let us know what we need to do better. And that's what we need in our support. And then this next piece, outreach. Here with us this evening, Mrs. Bradley, Kyle, the other individual who we work with, could not be with us, but outreach, for those of you who may not know, they help us to end youth homelessness throughout Indianapolis area. And there are many times that we can get the kid across the finish line, but there's housing that is compromised, or there is another resource that needs to be connected, or maybe we don't even have the answer. We don't know the answer. And they not only help us when we have an answer, they can help us to get that next step, but many times they will come to us with a solution to a problem. And not only do they have like the idea and the solution, they will take the action and carry it across the finish line. We were just reminiscing in the lobby about an individual who graduated last May, who truly we could not have gotten across the finish line, but just the ongoing communication that Outreach is doing to continue to close that loop and help us to make sure that that student is not just walking with that high school diploma, but they will go into that next chapter of their lives very successfully. So thank you to everyone at Outreach. We appreciate you so much. Thank you. And again, just thank you for letting us shine a spotlight on our wonderful school tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Oops, sorry. Thank you, Mrs. Seibert. Now, next item on our agenda is the superintendent's announcements. Dr. Woodson.
Thank you, President Turner. Good evening, everyone. In your announcements, I have some good news regarding the high school diploma redesign. This is the second version of information they are sharing, and it appears that they have listened to the overwhelming feedback that they have received in many aspects of this second rendition. So you have some documents there that will just guide you. Again, this is opening back up for feedback, and we'll see what additional revisions come over the next few months. It is the target to vote in December for implementation in January, as you know, when we start scheduling our 8th graders. So I will keep you updated on that. Also, some details from IUSA regarding property taxes and some reductions and pitfalls. I thought it was an interesting article that you might be interested in. I know in the past, the board has participated in the adult education graduation ceremonies, and I put the date in your documents. If you would like to participate in that, just let me know, and we will RSVP to you to adult education. I look forward to that every year. We also have very exciting public announcement within the last, I think, 10 days of the Lilly Endowment doing a massive grant opportunity for Marion County Public Schools. Dr. Taylor, Dr. Pettigrew, and I attended the information meeting last Friday. It is equally exciting after the information meeting. There are 3 phases to the grant opportunity. The first is just a planning phase, in which we will definitely submit for by the deadline September 13th. The second is a non-competitive grant funding time period that has substantial money equating to $500 per ADM. And the ADM they're using is 2023. And the phase 3 part of the grant for our size district has about $30 million in possibilities for us. So this equates to the amount of funding we had for ESSER. And it's a 5-year grant period, 2025 through 2030. For that reason, we think it's a beautiful time with where we are with our current strategic plan, which was written in 2020, to do a re-up of our strategic planning process for the district, for the future visioning for teaching and learning, curriculum and instruction in Washington Township. And so we will write for a portion of the pre-planning grant to do some strategic planning as a district and gain the voice of stakeholders, broad-based stakeholders. We don't have a lot of time. Phase 1 is due September 13th. Phase 2 is due February 12th. And phase 3 is due in April. So this is an aggressive timeline, but it's also a large amount of money that we're very excited about. So details are in your board documents. I just wanted to let you know we will be pursuing this, but from a strategic planning point of view and allowing that strategic planning process to develop the projects that we would write for in phase 2 and phase 3. So we will keep you updated. Also, some exciting news to share around the district. First is hot off the press, and I'm going to read this one for North Central High School. And I saw Mr. Rent here earlier. He had to slip out. But I was just informed that North Central has been awarded a stipend of almost $30,000 in recognition of their unwavering commitment to the modern apprenticeship program over the past several years. It's a one-time allocation made possible through a grant with Employ Indy received from the IDOE. So that is a major kudos to the program and staff there working hard on the modern apprenticeship program. We also have great news. The IHSAA has selected North Central to host the state tournament for track and field, which is an accolade to our facilities as well as our staff who could pull that off. And we have a kudos in your board documents with lots of information about it, but showcasing alumni who will be on stage at Conner Prairie soon. And you've got the details there. And last, I received a kudos to the Northview staff that I wanted to share with you. So lots of positive things happening and a great start.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Woodson. Any questions for Dr. Woodson? Next item on the agenda is comments from the public. Are there folks that are here would like to have let's back up. Next on our agenda item is comments from the public. Are there members of the public that would like to make comments tonight? Seeing none, before we move into the consent agenda, I will say that this is a public meeting. You're more than welcome to stay, but those that would like to leave, there's an opening right now for you to leave. Not that we don't want you here. As I said, the next item on the agenda is approval of consent agenda. Dr. Taylor?
President Turner, Dr. Woodson, members of the board, good evening. I am seeking your approval for the consent agenda this evening. The consent agenda includes approval of the minutes of the August 14th, 2024 regular board meeting and the memoranda of the August 12th, 2024, August 13th, 2024, and August 20th, 2024 executive sessions. Approval of 3 payroll calculation summary reports, a claims docket in the amount of $6,419,929.24, a human resources report containing for classified personnel 17 new hires indicated by numbers 45 through 61, 4 resignations, numbers 25 through 28, 1 retirement, that's number 1, 1 termination, number 4, and 11 leaves, numbers 1 through 11. For certified personnel, we have 2 new appointments, numbers 82 and 83, 1 resignation, number 162, 2 maternity child rearing adoptions for 29, as indicated by 29 and 30. There is 1 non-competitive grant this evening. That information is in your board docs for presentation for your approval. That's the submission of the 2024-2025 Title 1A grant and the amount of $2 million, $2,854,150.94. Information has been, again, provided to you, and I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have relative to the consent agenda.
Board have questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented by Dr. Taylor.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Next on the agenda is a finance meeting, 2025 budget workshop. Mrs. Smith.
Good evening. I know this is everyone's favorite time of the year, budgets. You just, can't sleep at night thinking of them. But no, that's me. Sorry, not you. But this evening I bring to you the 2025 budget workshop. And let's see if it comes up here. And for that, this takes a lot of time and planning, as you know from previous years. And we start this early spring and it goes all the way through October. But this evening, I'll just talk about a little bit of the agenda. Of course, we talk about our objectives, goals, mission, and vision, our budget calendar and schedule, our for our school corporation on our major budget funds, our stakeholder and data gathering input, reviewing the comparisons, and then our next steps for the budget. The budget consists of 3 major legal steps. Tonight is one of those, and that is to hold this budget workshop, and then also later on in the agenda, ask for permission to advertise budgets. And then our second is at the next board meeting on September 11th to hold a public hearing. And last but not least, the third is the budget adoption that we will have on October 16th. Moving on, of course, we know our main objective for our budget is to maintain expenses within the revenue streams provided. And our goal is, of course, to focus on programs and services for our student achievement while providing a competitive compensation package to obtain and retain employees. We go over our mission statement and vision statement throughout the year here at Washington Township. And We want to be able to create equitable, affirming, and responsive learning environments for all of our students to thrive. Moving on, we received this information from the Department of Local Government Finance, and that sets our calendar that we have to do for the statutory dates that are required for our budget process. And here you'll see we receive this information straight from the Department of Local Government Finance, and we receive this annually, and it gives us that guidance. And what we do is we take those dates and we work backwards to make sure that we adhere to those dates and have everything done by the final date that we're allowed. And then I take that information, and then in May/June, the board sees this budget preparation calendar, so you can prepare for these major dates as it requires the board's input and approval each step of the way. So you'll see that we have this one, and we bring this early, late spring, early summer for your approval. And then next, we just talk about our major funds and how our school corporation does our funding here. We are cash basis, and that is different than some of the larger districts. There's a handful in the state that anyone over 15,000 students has to do an accrual basis, just like a large corporation would. And here we're still at a cash basis, so it's revenue in, expenditures out, and that is how we thrive to attain all our balances throughout the district. We are a fund accounting. Our major funds for our district are our education fund, our operations fund, we have debt service funds, and then we also have our referendum debt funds, and then our capital referendum funds. And already talked about how the budgets are approved through the school board and then certified through the state. You'll see here, I keep this slide in here just because you hear a lot of people talk about general fund. So it's hard habit to break since it was that way for, 30 plus years. But in 2019, our old general fund that was split up into 4 buckets was split out. 2 buckets went into a new fund called Education Fund, and the other 2 transferred over to a new fund called Operations. Along with those 2 buckets that went to Operations was our old funds called Capital Projects, Transportation Operating, and Bus Replacement. So you'll see there that difference on the screen, and also what we use those for and how we receive our funding for those. Next, you'll see our main revenue comes into the district through our state tuition, which is our basic grant, through our student enrollment, which is our ADM, our official ADM, average daily membership. And then the other bucket is from our local property taxes and other miscellaneous revenue. And then you'll see here, according to each of the major funds and what is used for expenditures in those funds. Of course, education, that is education directly aimed towards students. So that is all of our buildings, all the people in our buildings and such. And then we have operations. Operations is consists of general administration, building services, has repair and maintenance, transportation, some technology. Technology is split between education and operations from instructional side and then administration side. And then we have our debt service, which holds our general obligation bonds and our lease payments for major projects. And then our referendums that we have, our operating referendum and our capital referendum, which was an additional tax that our generous school community approved for us in this district. Then as we're developing the budget, we have major stakeholders input. So we go through a lot of different divisions, departments and such to gather all this information. Data gathering, just wanted to give you some historical content here. You'll see here, this is our fall average daily membership and what our history has been since 2017. And then we also have, of course, the data and the graph to show how our district is going throughout the years. And then you'll see the spring ADM membership also in that history. What we do is we take those estimates and we have a worksheet that the Department of Education provides to us after the funding formula has been developed after each legislative session. Then I take those estimates of our enrollment and I have a worksheet estimation that gives us that estimate for our basic grant for the next year. So when you're running those numbers, it has a summary page and this is what it develops. It shows where we currently are for the year and then what we're estimating. And like I said, this is just an estimate because we do not know what our final number will be for our fall ADM until after October 1st. And then also for our spring ADM, which is February 1st. So our fall ADM funds the first 6 months of the fiscal year, July through December. And then the spring ADM funds the second 6 months, which is January through June. Then you'll see our tax rate history for Washington Township here since 2016. And you'll see how our rate has gone up by design and then has steadied off there from the last several years. And then our assessed valuation, that's what makes us tricky. It's a formula that goes with our tax rate and is based on our assessed valuation. So you'll look at that, that data there from 2015 to 2025. Look at the percent difference column. Boy, has that been a ride. As the assessed valuation goes up, our tax rate goes down. So when you see that, like in 2023, we went up 13%. This year, Marion County was behind on certifying their assessed valuation. It is due every August 1st. And this year it didn't get certified till mid-month. And I heard a lot of rumors throughout the state saying that some ranged all the way from 4% to 15% increase. So we were waiting on pins and needles to see what we would do here at Washington Township, and ours ended up right at 4.4%. So we were happy that that has been more stable for us in the fact of that we didn't end up with another 13 to 15% increase. So then what I bring to you this evening is comparisons. After we put all these numbers together, wanted you to have the comparisons for for each one of these major funds. And this is for the education fund, and this is on the revenue side. So what I'm showing you here is how that revenue is broken down by topic. And then it shows you last year's budget order that was certified, which is this current year, January through December. And then also what we are advertising or projecting for 2025. Then you'll see here the expenditure side. So what we do here is we break this down for you by object. Object is the type. So is it salaries, benefits, supplies? How do we break out the budget? And this is just, like I said, the projected budget, which of course, by the time that you have the calendar year 2025 come through, that is half of one school year and then half of another year. So that's why they call it a projection. And then here is just the overall comparison showing in 2024 what our official budget order came in to be and certified versus what was advertised. And then what are we asking to advertise for 2025. Now, I wanted to note, if you'll see that increase, of course, in the budget. One thing that is changing in January is our curricular materials is moving from the old curriculum material fund 0900 and they're placing it in our education fund. So 2 million of that isn't just an estimate that we have to put in there for that revenue and for those expenditures that we would be paying out. The old curricular fund 0900 was not a major budgeted fund. So that's why there is more of a difference than normal that you guys would see in the budget for this for 2025. Then we go on to our referendum operating fund, the same type of information. You'll see there from 2024, it was a little over $20 million. For 2025, would like to advertise $23 million. And that is based on the increased assessed valuation and property taxes that we anticipate to receive. And then the breakdown of expenditures by object here again for that amount. Then you also see the comparisons between the 2024 advertised, the actual certified budget order, and then what we're asking to advertise for this year. And just a reminder, I will go back just a hair on that. A reminder, we always advertise a little high. After they compute our budget, then they take it down to what the minimum or maximum can be. This is one of those funds where we did a flat tax rate. We did of 25 cents, but how you input the budget into the system, you must do more, because whatever you put in there, if for some reason at the end they calculate your budget and it ends up less than that, then you get whatever you advertised, or whatever is calculated, whatever one is the lower. So for some reason, if I would advertise at 25 cents right on the nose, and when they calculated the assessed valuation, there could have been a mistake. And when they do the final calculation, if their calculation ended up under that 25 cents, then we only get what was advertised and under. So that is why we advertise a little higher. Then we have our debt service fund. This is the revenue portion of our debt service fund. And just to remind you, the debt service fund is our general obligation bonds and our lease bonds that go for our major capital repair and maintenance type things. So these are our regular capital needs outside of our capital referendum. So if you think of that, both of our capital referendums, after those are done, we still need to replace roofs. We need to, do paving, lighting, all those different types of things that we have to maintain on our buildings. And that's what this helps fund in addition to our operations fund. And then what we develop here is a long-range debt service schedule. So then we can project out what we anticipate for our debt service. This has our current debt and how long those are, each one is paid out. And then we have a line in each section called future anticipated debt. So future anticipated general obligation bonds, lease, and other debt. And we project that out, and each year that is recalculated based on whatever general obligation bond we may have issued that year, or as one falls off and another one that we issue in place. Lots of information there. So there's our comparisons with 2024 against what we're asking for advertising for 2025. Then we have our regular comparisons here for our referendum debt fund. So our referendum debt fund is our capitals, our capital referendums that as we need cash flow and we need to spend from that 2016 and our 2020 capital referendums, this is what we sell leases and bonds for to collect that money to be able to pay any kind of invoices and bills and that for each of one of the projects. And that also has a long-range debt service schedule. And just a reminder, our last board meeting, you heard me talking about how we're doing the last funding for the capital referendums. So the board approved some of those processes last board meeting. And then, of course, we always have several different stages to that to do the final approval. We sell bonds, and then we come back and have resolutions for the board. That'll be done over the next couple board meetings, and then that will be finished for our capital referendum financing. Then you'll see the comparisons here, 2024 against 2025. Our operations fund. Our operation fund has what's called a maximum levy, and that is a maximum levy that is calculated from the state level. And it has, what they mean by that is a maximum property tax you can raise in operations fund. So that is another reason why we have our debt service fund, because we get so much money in our operations fund that will not fund those major roofing projects that cost millions of dollars each. So here you see the difference from our 2024 budget order and our 2025 advertised. And this is also another one where when they created the 2019 different funds from general fund and capital projects to our education fund and our operations fund, all the revenue from our tuition support still goes into our education fund. Remember, I talked about those 4 buckets. 2 buckets of those moved into operations funds. So how do you fund that if all the money is still going in education? Well, there's an Indiana code that allows us to transfer up to 15% of what we receive in our basic grant tuition support into our operations fund to be able to fund those two buckets that moved over. This is the maximum levy calculation that comes straight from the state that they calculate every year for us. So we already have an idea approximately what that estimated maximum levy can be raised in our district. And then also, just to remind you, there is a property tax cap that happens if a homeowner has value over a certain percentage, then they're capped where they do not have to pay over that amount for the property tax. So when they established that way back when, 15 years ago, that was a loss for the districts. So this is a history of what kind of loss that we received that comes straight from our operations revenue from those local property tax. They take this right off the top. And what I'm glad to see for our district is that number going down. You'll see it started out, and there's years before this, a little over $2 million, and now we're down to 620,000. So that's good for our district. I know there's a lot of districts that have $2 to $8 million of property tax loss each year, significantly. And then you'll see here our expenditures for our operations funds broken down by the types. And then the comparisons for 2024 versus 2025. And then also what's required is a capital projects plan. This is a 3-year plan, and it is consists of 2 different areas. One is called capital acquisition, and this is any equipment that we plan to spend out of our operations fund that is over $10,000. So remember, we have different funds. We have our debt funds. So this is I call it the highest case that we would spend for these type of items. So I work along with other departments within the district to see what they have planned, and then we put together this capital acquisition plan. And we're only held to the dollar amount in the first year, and this is a capital plan that is redone every year. I don't know, in my opinion, why we have 3 years if you can change the other 2 every single time, but that's just how it is. And then next is capital projects in nature that could possibly be spent out of our operations fund. So we put all types of things in here, a regular routine maintenance, asphalt repair and maintenance. You'll see other items in there, furniture, roof repairs, curb repairs, all kinds of things that we may take out of our operations fund. And then we're also required to have a bus replacement plan. It's a 5-year plan, and this is a plan where the standard is any bus that is meets over 12 years that you're able to replace. Of course, you might see on our plans some being replaced earlier than that. There also is a provision in the law that if we have what I call a lemon, so we keep track of that through our transportation, the mileage on a bus, the repair and maintenances on buses and things like that. So I work in tandem with our transportations department to identify and plan these bus replacements out for the next 5 years. And we redo this also every year in case from one year to another, all of a sudden a bus does become a problem, then we can change it in the future years and have that one replaced earlier. And this is just the second page of that for the last 2 years of the 5-year plan. And then what are our next steps? So when I put all this together and put everything in the system, there is on Gateway, there is a component where I have each one of these areas that compute different parts of the budget. So this is just a flow that you'll see. All the blue is my inputs that I do. The orange is a calculation that comes out that gives our approximate estimates for our budgets and different financial statements and property tax rates. And then our outputs is our Form 3, which is our notice to taxpayers that we must advertise, and then an official resolution for our budget called a Form 4. So you'll see this throughout those 3 steps of the budget process. So these, right in the next couple slides, just summarize those amounts that we just went over. So you'll see that by fund and also any kind of transfers. That's that education to operations transfer. and then the grand total that is recorded on the Form 4 that we'll ask later to advertise. And the advertising is on our website and the Gateway website. And then here is the summary of the estimated levies, our property taxes that would like to advertise. And you'll see that there for each one of the funds. And as you'll notice, our education fund and our rainy day fund does not have property taxes. Like I indicated, our education fund is our ADM based on our tuition. And then rainy day is based on whatever you had in your reserves in your cash balances for rainy day. And then advertising, this is what we'll ask later on, but we need to be able to advertise on the Gateway website for all Indiana governmental units, and then also on our MSDWT website. That's our bus replacement plan, our capital projects plan, and our Form 3 notice to taxpayers. For advertising purposes, in between each one of these steps, there must be 10 days in between each step. And then you'll see our next step is our public hearing that we'll have on September 11th. And then I just read off that. And then also on October 16th is our date for the board's adoption of our budget. And then just other requirements, we have other ancillary resolutions that the board will see. And then all this comes together, goes to the Department of Local Government Finance, and then they are tasked to certify our budget in December, which then they give us what's called a 1782 notice, which is a draft. We have 10 days from that to make sure everything was calculated right. That is very, very important because they're human just like anyone else. And I've had several times where maybe our debt service, they accidentally left something off our debt service and those type of things. So that is very important when that 1782 notice comes in, that I check it with a fine-tooth comb and then I respond back, and then they officially certify our budget by the end of December. Now, I know that's a lot of information. I know it's exciting information, but I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Board have questions? No? No, sir. Thank you, Mrs. Smith. I appreciate that. Well, keep standing there.
Oh, yeah.
First item on action item is approval of permission to advertise 2025 budgets, Form 3, capital projects plan, and bus replacement plan as presented by Mrs. Smith.
Sure. On your screen, you'll see the notice to taxpayers, and this is how what we advertise on that Gateway site and also on our website. This is just a cumulation of what we already talked about in our budget workshop. This has to have the information to the public on when we're going to hold our public hearing, which is September 11th, and when we plan on adopting our budgets, which is October 16th. And then all the numbers that we just went through is also listed on there for our public. And then also the full capital projects plan. I just showed you some of the pages on the workshop. And this also has a notice to taxpayers that talks about the public hearing. And then it has the capitals in nature and then the acquisitions in that we talked about for that 3-year plan. And then last but not least is our bus replacement plan. And that too is the same information that we just shared. And it also has the notice to taxpayers page that talks about the public hearing. It has the other pages that show what we plan on replacing in the next 5 years. And that is all I have for this item, and I would ask for the board's approval to advertise as presented.
Board have questions? I have one quick one.
Sure.
And you triggered this because of something you said about bus replacement, and then the list that you just showed us about the capital projects plan. Bus replacement, so we're planning 10 a year, but you said that if the 11th bus conks out, we can move and adjust, right? What happens to that list that you showed for the capital projects? All the different things, whether it's the golf carts or the gators or whatever. So when we spend in addition to that, we don't have to advertise that as long as we stay within our budget?
What they have for the capital That's why a lot of the things that we do through the capital referendum or for the debt service. If we were going to do anything that's $10,000 or above in our operations fund, then we have to bring an amendment to that capital projects plan back to the board. That's why we put as much as we can in there. That doesn't mean we're going to do it all, but that gives us every opportunity to do as much or as little as we can do in the operations fund.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
No further questions. I'll entertain a motion.
And provide permission to advertise the budgets. Form 3, the capital projects plan and budget.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Action item number 2, approval of authorizing investment of public funds resolution. Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Board President, Dr. Woods, and members of the board. I bring to you this evening a customary resolution that we do in our district authorizing the different aspects that we invest our funds. So this is mandatory that we must bring this resolution every year for your approval. And this is just stating that if we have invest funds outside of the financial institution, meaning our normal regular bank account, then we make sure that our terms are range between 2 and 5 years. And we know that there are many banks in Marion County, so a lot of our bids that we get for investing funds are within Marion County, but this allows us, in case one is outside of Marion County, that gives us a significantly better rate that we're able to use them.
Board have questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
We approve the resolution authorizing investment. Second.
It's been,
Sorry. By Mrs. Smith.
been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Action item number 3, approval of first reading of policies D275, D300, D475, D500, D525, E175, E225, G200, G250, and G300. Mrs. Smith.
Thanks, Board President. Attached in your board packet, you'll see all the details for each one of these policies. I'll just briefly summarize each one of these. Policy D275 is drug-free workplace, and this replaces policies 312201, 3170, 412201, 4170, and this policy is a required policy. Policy D300 is controlled substance policy for CDL and safety sensitive positions. This replaces policy 4162, and this also is a required policy. And it has also has a certificate of receipt that the employee should be signing off on acknowledging such policy. Next, you'll see policy D475, reduction in staff. This replaces policies 3131 and 4131. The law does not require this. This is one of those that are, but is based on law that we customarily have in our board policies. Policy D500, school resource officer training. If a school has their own police department, they must have specific policies regarding the SRO training for those different students that we have, all different varieties of students. And if we employ the SRRs, we are mandated to provide this training and have this policy. So this is required under Indiana Code 20-26-5-31. Next, we have policy D525, no distracted driving. This policy is optional, but of course, being a large district like we have here at Washington Township and a lot of district vehicles, this is good to have in our policies. Policy E175 is student records. This replaces policy 8330. Much of this policy, such as the list of directory information, will need to be placed in the administrative guidelines that we plan on doing over the next 6 to 9 months. And this is required under FERPA and Indiana codes. Next, we have policy E225, and this is college and university programs. And this replaces policy 2271, and this has required content versus with Indiana code. Next, we have policy G200, environmental health and safety issues. This replaces policy 8405. And this is another one that the law does not require a policy, but it's policies based on law and replaces an existing policy that we've had in the district. Next, we have policy G250, pest control, and this replaces policy 8432 and is a required policy. And next, we have policy G300, latchkey programs. And if you're like several of us that heard that word, you know, it seems like an outdated title. And it is one of those that's still in Indiana code. We have discussions with our attorneys that are helping us with our board policies, and they do have another like title that we could name it. And we'll be looking into that. They're going to send me all that information, and we'll see if that does change by the second reading. I will definitely let you know. And this is a required policy. And let's see, I think that was it for this one. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time on these policies.
Thank you, board. Any questions? You can do it now. It's fine.
For what it's worth, I do. For anyone watching on the live stream and any members of the public, it's been a couple months since I made this. I did just want to assure people that not only do I know all the board members do review these, but I personally had a meeting with Ms. Smith and we read through all of them line by line. So even though it sounds like a lot of very dry content, every now and then I do like to just make a comment to assure folks that yes, we have read these. You know what we're voting on, and I know I personally have gone through them with Ms. Smith line by line. And it's one of the people going, we still call it.
Yes.
There it is. So, just my.
Mhm. Sure, thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the first reading of policies D275, D300, D475, D500, D525, E175, E225, G200, G250, and G300 as wonderfully presented by Mrs. Smith.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Thank you.
Next item, approval and adoption of a second reading of policies D225, D250, D350, D400, D425, D450, E150, G100, G325 as presented by Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, President. Attached in your dockets, in your board docs, you'll see all the details for these policies, and this is the second reading. I'll do a brief overview also with these. Policy D225 is employee ethics. This replaces policy 3210, and much of this policy has been optional, but is very helpful to have and replaces an existing policy that we did have here at Washington Township. Next, you'll see policy D250, teacher appreciation grant. This replaces policy 3220.01, and this is required and is adopted annually by the board. Next, we have policy D350, fitness for duty, leaves, and examinations. This replaces policies 1460, 1461, 3160, 3161, 4160, and 4161. And this is another one where the law is not required, this policy, but is based on law and customary since we've had these in our policies. Next, you'll see policy D400, family and medical leaves of absence. This replaces policy 1630.01, 3430.01, 4430, 4430.01. And this is another one, law does not require the policy, but it's based on law. And much of the detailed rules will be in the forthcoming administrative guidelines. Next, we have policy D425, employee benefits. This replaces policies 3421 and 4421, and this policy is required. Next, we have policy D450, resignation. This replaces policies 3140 and 4140. And this is another one where the law does not require policy, but it's based on law. Next, we have policy E150, programs for high ability students. This replaces policy 2464, and the law does require a plan, and a lot of the plan content will be in the administrative guidelines. Next, policy G100, facility and transportation security. This replaces policies 7440 and 8400. This is not required, but has always been a area of public concern, and the administrative guideline will address metal detectors and such throughout the administrative guidelines that will be forthcoming. Next, we have, last but not least, policy G325, free and reduced meal prices, and this replaces policy 8531, and this is a required policy. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have regarding the second reading and adoption of these policies.
Thank you. Board have any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Approve and adopt the second reading of policies D225, D350, D400, D425, D150, D325, as presented by Mrs.
Been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none or hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
Thank you very much.
Very much. That was quite a lot for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda, action item is approval to submit the 2024-2025 K-12 robotics competition grant application. Dr. Seaver.
Good evening, President Turner, Dr. Woodson, and members of the board. I am here tonight seeking your review and approval of the 2024-2025 K-12 robotics competition grant application. Due to the grant application just becoming available in August, as well as the short time frame to submit the application to the IDOE, as well as the cadence of the board meetings, we needed to quickly get together and collaborate with each of our schools on the application materials, submit the application by last Friday's IDOE deadline, and then bring the request to you for approval today. We would appreciate your support in helping us make this work on such a short timeline. However, if you have concerns with this competitive grant, of course, we could certainly retract our application. As part of my request for approval, I would like to provide you with some brief background information on robotics programming here in Washington Township, as well as our reasoning for applying for this grant totaling $81,800. Our elementary schools have only had robotics teams for a couple of years, some of which initially existed as clubs meeting after school without actual competitions. Last school year, 4 of the 8 elementary schools had competition teams, which was very exciting. This was at Allisonville, Clearwater, Greenbrier, and Nora. They largely pieced these teams together, seeking out their own grants and support from PTO or other partners. The other 4 elementary schools have expressed interest now in starting a club and have requested financial support to purchase the initial equipment needed to build and maintain a robot, register their team, and compete in 1 or more competitions. Interest among elementary students is growing quickly, and the schools with established robotics teams have all indicated that they will expand their number of teams if grant funding is available. Meanwhile, our middle school robotics clubs have seen significant growth in recent years. Now, all 3 of our middle schools have thriving programs with increased participation and multiple competitive teams. Students have competed both virtually and in person at events like the VEX competition in Indianapolis. The schools are enthusiastic about expanding these opportunities. They have shown resilience in rebuilding their programs post-pandemic and have been upgrading their equipment, particularly at Eastwood, and Northview just now starting to participate in competitions. Our middle schools are all seeing strong student interest and are looking forward to increasing their competition involvement in the coming year. Finally, North Central Robotics has evolved to include now a dedicated course, which was introduced in fall of 2022 at the J. Everett Lake Career Center. And then in the 2023-2024 school year, North Central students participated in VEX Robotics competitions in Indianapolis, placing 12th out of 30 teams overall. For the 2024-25 school year, the program aims to expand, with callouts actually taking place this week for all interested students. Additionally, JEL has invested in VEX Field Elements to support students at Greenbrier Elementary, planning to integrate these young learners into a simulation game at the Career Center by the end of this semester. Overall, we are very excited about the growing pipeline of students and educators throughout Washington Township who are invested in these STEM-related activities, and we look forward to the possibility of utilizing this grant to support robotics programming in the future. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Board questions? Yep, Mrs. Horst Kruger.
Dr. Seaver, just a quick question. When will you find out if the grant is being awarded? And that's the first question. When will you find out?
We anticipate by the end of September.
So then that will, and then will you receive the funding fairly quickly so you can move forward with this?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Mhm.
great. Thank you.
Mrs. Davis?
So this says K-12, right? So in the grant, like obviously we don't see that yet, but how does the disbursement work? So will
Sure.
each school get an equal amount, or
Yep,
is it based
so
on
they
the size of
actually,
their programs?
They told us how much that they would put toward each team, and it depended on if it is a returning team or a new team. So the 4 elementary schools that do not yet have teams will
more.
get a larger allocation of funding so that they can start up. And then the returning teams get money for replacement equipment as well as registration materials, that sort of thing.
And then do you typically see where like the older, the high school, because it's more complex, might need larger?
The high
amounts
school
as
already
well?
has quite a bit of materials. So we actually, Mr. Blom and Dr. Thorpe and I worked together on the grant application and allocated more to our younger grades that are just starting up, and then just more of the replacement fees for the high school.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
We approve the submission of the 2024-2025 K-12 robotics scholarship is presented by Dr. Seaver.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much. Next action item, approval of Amendment 1 to the Health Services Agreement with Marathon Health. Dr. Kaiser.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson, President Turner, and members of the board. I come to you tonight seeking your approval to amend our agreement with Marathon Health to add an additional medical assistant at our employee clinic. And I'm happy to provide some kind of context behind the recommendation. First, we knew that this amendment might be necessary when we signed our original agreement with Marathon a year ago. As you may recollect, Marathon not only provides our employee clinic, it also provides 6 network clinics that surround the city that are also accessible to our staff. Given the fact that we weren't sure what our clinic usage would look like, knowing that we were adding an additional opportunity to utilize these network clinics by covered members, their spouses, and their children, we intentionally scaled back the staffing at our employee clinic relative to where we were with our previous provider. So we started small, knowing that then we would be able to analyze our usage data at the clinic and perhaps increase staffing if it was necessary. Now that we have a full year's worth of data of usage at our employee clinic, knowing that those network locations are in play, we know that it is still a robust and active place that our staff are relying on. 79% of our employees who are covered under the health plan have engaged in Marathon in some way, and 74% of our covered spouses have engaged in Marathon in some way. Those numbers nationwide are very, very strong, as Marathon has reported to us, relative to other K-12 clinics in their space. 34 staff members in the last month have visited Marathon for the first time, and that data is in your board docs for this evening. So the usage is really driven by our staff really keying into that clinic, but it is spreading our current staffing there thin. We currently have a nurse practitioner who is there at all times and a single medical assistant. This would add a second medical assistant who is there when the clinic is open. This still is possible at a cost that will be less than what we were paying our previous provider. So it is still a savings to the district relative to where we have been historically. And those funds will be utilized out of the self-insurance fund. Payments to the clinic do in some ways always represent a savings. I know that you know as the board that there is a contract with Marathon, but I would just like to highlight, for you and the public, that's an investment in our staff and their access. Anytime that we have folks who are going to that clinic rather than going to an emergency room, rather than going to an urgent care and making a claim, there is certainly A, a savings to the plan, and B, our staff receiving what we consider to be, better care at a closer spot. So that ongoing relationship does also allow us to catch and diagnose some pieces early. And as you know, much of the focus of our employee clinic is on preventative care and meeting people where they are. And certainly, if we have the opportunity to capture some things very early, it may have a significant saving to the plans in the future. Lots and lots has changed in the medical world, but my understanding is an ounce of prevention is still worth a pound of cure. So we are able to do that as well. And then qualitatively, I would also just say to you, one of the things that I talked to about with our staff relative to our employee clinic is we really want that space to feel like your old town doctor's office, right? It's a place where they know you by name and that you feel very welcomed and connected. The current staffing, as they're working to deal with the volume of appointments, they are doing a great job of connecting with our staff. But I think having that additional staff member is going to give them the breathing room to do it at even a higher level. So certainly very happy to answer any questions the board may have about the amendment to the Marathon agreement that we are recommending this evening.
Board have questions? Ms. Horst Kruger?
Dr. Kaiser, does the usage, the high numbers of usage, is that a surprise? Was that anticipated? I don't recall that discussion.
Like I said, I think what we're finding is that the usage is similar to what we have experienced in the past, that folks are accessing that network location. I think if we were staffed where we had been with our previous provider, we would feel overstaffed. So I don't know that the usage is necessarily massively more. It is the usage relative to the staff. When we're seeing all of that engagement, I think it's the variety of I'm able to engage both at the clinic, I'm able to engage at the network provider, and I'm able to engage virtually. And I think what we're finding is we're meeting people where they are.
Oh, I think it's great. Great.
Other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the Amendment 1 to the Health Services Agreement with American Health as presented by Dr. Kaiser.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Dr. Kaiser. Action item number 7, approval of the K-12 tech repair agreement renewal. Mr. Kneebone.
Dr. Woodson, President Turner, members of the board. I'm requesting approval to renew our K-12 Tech Solutions contract in the amount of $288,000. It's budgeted and paid for out of the operations fund. This is the service that covers a twice-a-week pickup, repair, and drop-off of all of the student Chromebooks, and they do that at every school. This is our 4th year using the service, and it's been a great experience. It's kept the devices working and in schools in the hands of students. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Board have questions? No questions? Entertain a motion?
Move that we approve the K-12 tech repair agreement. As presented by Mr.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Knebone. Next item on the agenda is approval of student handbook modifications and administration authority to modify the handbook. Dr. Pettigrew.
Good evening, President Turner, Superintendent Woodson, members of the board. I am here to request approval of the updates to the K-12 handbook. There are 4 updates that we received after the May 15th board approval. Although we have communicated these updates via Parent Square, our K-12 handbooks do not reflect these changes. The 4 areas include updated immunization requirements, student lunch information in light of our CEP designation, updates to our safety initiatives for Help Me, a 24/7 technology platform, and our updated attendance information related to SEA 282, new legislation that applies to attendance for students in grades K through 6. In light of these changes, I also seek permission to make minimal adjustments to the handbook based on any upcoming updated legislation or legal requirements like the vaccination or like board-approved changes like Help Me. Any additional edits will be approved by Dr. Woodson and shared with the board. At this time, I request approval to update the K-12 handbooks with these 4 changes and to make minor adjustments as necessary throughout the year with Dr. Woodson's approval. I'm available for questions.
Board have questions? Hearing none. All those, you gotta make a motion first. I'll entertain a motion.
Move that we approve the modifications to the student handbook as presented by Dr. Seaver, and also approve the administration authority to make future modifications as presented by, did I say Dr. Seaver? I'm sorry, Dr. Pettigrew, both presented by Dr. Pettigrew.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. And then the last action item is approval of MTSS contract of services. Dr. Pettigrew.
For President Turner, Superintendent Woodson, members of the board, I'm here to request approval to engage in contracted services with Dr. Judy Elliott, an esteemed MTSS specialist and expert. This request stems from our district's commitment to enhancing teaching methodologies and student outcomes and the need to have an integrated and consistent system to implement and sustain our MTSS practices. MTSS is a framework that helps our educators identify students' academic, behavioral, and social emotional strengths and challenges and provide support based on students' individualized needs. It is a collaborative, evidence-based approach for targeted support for the whole child and is required by the Department of Education. Dr. Judy Elliott's expertise will be invaluable to our teaching and learning department. She will offer targeted professional development for our educators, our MTSS coaches that are aligned with latest research-based practices. She will also help with assisting in the revision of our MTSS guidelines and decision rules. And she will provide data-driven insight to improve student engagement and achievement. Her extensive experience in MTSS has been vetted by our Teaching and Learning and Student Services Department, and we are confident the MTSS practices will improve with her guidance and training. We are excited to develop the internal capacity of our district and building coaches, our division leaders, our administrators, who will ultimately oversee the MTSS work in their building. Dr. Elliott will be contracted to work with Washington Township for 2 years, and the funding source is our Title II grant, which is dedicated to professional development. At this time, I request approval to utilize Dr. Judy Elliott's services for MTSS professional development and training. I'm available for questions.
Mrs. Horth Krueger.
Just a quick question. The $50,000, is that, I'm assuming, covers the 2-year contract?
Yes, and if we need to come back to the board, if there's additional services that are needed in that next year, we will do that. But that is essentially up to $50,000.
Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, I assume, partially for Ms. clarification, MTSS is something we're already doing, right? I've been doing,
Correct.
this is to kind of help us improve it. Continue.
Absolutely. It's to help us have consistent systems in place so that we're using the same approach in all of our buildings.
Any other questions? If not,
There are no questions. I move that we approve the MTSS contract of services as presented by Dr. Pettigrew.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Dr. Pettigrew. That concludes our action items. Now we move into information items. Capital projects, construction update. Mr. Boots.
You, Mr. President, good evening, Dr. Woodson and members of the board. I'm here this evening to provide just a little ray of sunshine at the end of the meeting and update you all on the capital projects that we have been going on. See if I can get this.
Should be the very
What am I doing, Sean? I know, right?
Yeah, we want the budget again. Encore.
Please.
It's the, I'm sure it's the very bottom one.
On the very bottom.
I need
I need more. Give me numbers.
Okay, so I am here tonight for a brief update on where we are with all of our capital projects. So I'm real glad to announce that with the rededication of the Fox Hill Elementary on August 22nd, we've now completed all of the renovations for the elementary schools across the district.
Hey.
Yeah. And I can announce that with the dedication of the new Northview, we have completed all of the renovations and constructions for the middle schools across the district. So while there are a few minor things yet to complete on some of these projects, they are being what we call substantially complete, being used and enjoyed by the student and staff of the district. So we'll briefly update a little bit on the active projects that we have. The last of the utility work and the site work on the west side of the high school was completed over the summer, along with the renovation and new entry at the stoplight off 86th Street. And while it wasn't perfect, I thought the campus was in pretty good shape for the start of school and has been serving the district pretty well since then. The phase 3 of the project, which consisted of that construction on the northeast side and renovations to the entire North Central facility and additions to the administration area and the theater arts area. This project is underway and will be active for about the next 20 months as we work our way through the entire high school. Some of the completed areas include some science, math, art, and English classrooms, the main gymnasium, and parts of the kitchen. There is an area of the new locker rooms adjacent to the gym that's been delayed because of some material procurement, but that is scheduled to be turned over in November. New administration addition there on the northeast corner is going up and is scheduled for completion at the end of this year. More pictures of the gymnasium there.
I did want to make a point of emphasis. I agree with the start is much better than last year, but we are going to have a year change. Right now, it's open at the frame, so we will have redirected traffic flow patterns that are currently being studied by the team, along with exterior traffic consultants. So it's been going to be a year traffic change is substantial. So planning on
Thank you. So to complete phase 3, the administration that will finish at the end of the year, and to Dr. Woodson's point, that includes all the redirection of traffic and parking on that northeast corner that's currently under construction. And then the new theater arts expansion between the theater arts area and the JEL building is underway. That'll tie JEL with theater arts and the high school, of course, and that'll be completed in May of 2025. So phase 4 of the high school, that consisted, as you know, mainly of primarily of improvements to the athletic fields and athletic support facilities, including the all-new football stadium and soccer press box. That work was complete, and we successfully christened the new football stadium just this last Friday against Fishers High School. The new elevator, which is lagging a little bit, should be finished here in the next few weeks and served people so they don't have to hump up all of the bleachers to get to the press box. But by all reports, it was operated well. It was a great start to the season. I wish the outcome would have been a little different, of course, but it's functioning well. We'll finish up everything over the next couple of weeks, and as the weather cooperates, everything will turn green. And by the time the weather turns, it'll be in very good shape. The other project that is currently underway is our Hilltop renovation project, primarily HVAC and electrical renovations. Due to long lead time items of major equipment, that one has prolonged a little bit, but is still scheduled to finish about Thanksgiving of this year. Looks to be right on schedule with no concerns that we know of at this time. We're also reviewing the modifications that will be needed inside the facility to accommodate the temporary use by JEL as flex space when their renovation project kicks off next spring. We're also looking at doing some other renovations. The building is beginning to show its age, so we're doing some re-roofing and things like that. And then after use by JEL as flex space, the current intent is to transition that for use by adult education. So those are the ones that are active, and while we've accomplished a lot and we are still very busy, they do have a few more in the pipeline. Now, I mentioned JEL. Excuse me, that building has successfully bid. It's under contract. We're in procurement right now of major equipment. That one also, like the Hilltop, is in a big way mechanically and electrical, and those are long lead time items. So that item will pick up, or that project will pick up in the spring and complete in the summer of 2026. And I can't hardly believe I'm going to say this, but the last major project to bid of all the referendum projects will be the Washington Township Service Center, the old Northview. This project, the majority of this project, what we term phase 6B, will be bidding on September 10th, and we'll mobilize as quickly as we can get things together, hopefully by about mid-October. So we did bid a very small package, an early package, just so we could beat the weather a little bit, doing some exterior improvements. This phase also includes some work on the warehouse, so we're putting the new roof on the warehouse as well. And those packages should be finished by the time the weather turns. And then we will come back to you one more time with a phase, what we call 6C, which is really just the site work and some of the utility underground work surrounding the new services center there. That will probably be right after the first of the year. So that concludes the current projects and those in planning. A couple small side comments. We are also working on the revised design for the demolition of the bus sheds and completing the remaining drainage and site work at both Eastwood and Westlake Middle Schools. Just as a reminder, that was got wrapped up in some delays that we experienced here, trying to get the bus storage facility finished when we could not get permits out of the city back during the time when everything was in a mess. So we had to cut that delay that part of the project. So we're circling back. Unfortunately, since that happened, the requirements for stormwater management through the city has changed. So that's now going to force us to go back through that review and design process. So our intent is to get that done at both schools next summer. And just another comment, the construction of the new nickel plate trail does continue. I don't know if you've been tracking with that, but that's going to be nice when it's finished. It's going along 86th Street now from Allisonville to about the midpoint through the frontage of Eastwood, and should be done again by the time the weather changes. So just a quick update then on our XBE participation and workforce development efforts. The last report that was just issued by Winston Terrell Group a few days ago reports a whopping $113 million in XBE commitment, and so far a total of $105.6 million in total XBE spent to date. So a significant numbers that are having a major impact on that community. So we're also pleased to announce that we've placed another North Central High School student in an intern role for that North Central High School project. He'll be starting, I believe, next week, and we'll support him in any way we can to make sure his experience is meaningful for him. And then in conjunction with, of course, Robin Winston, we're also implementing a new initiative labeled Jobs Matter. This initiative is aimed at senior North Central High School students, and the initiative is designed to expand career and workforce development options, and will start in mid-September of this year and continue through the end of the 2025 school year. This goal is to place students in a variety of career workforce development opportunities with our present and past professional partners. And we're kind of flipping the script on this a little bit. We're going to dig a little deeper in their service providers that we have, not only our directly contracted service providers, our CMs and designers, but even their subcontractors, and maybe go down another layer to the sub level and seek more opportunities. Those opportunities, when they are identified, will be turned over to the work-based, not turned over, but will be presented to the work-based learning coordinators, staff at JEL, and others charged with developing career placements. Those placements descriptions will be included such things and as the placement options, the requested time commitment, the rudimentary skills that would be required for that position, compensation, and of course the goals for placement after the internships. So we're excited about this. It's a little bit tweak on an old practice, but we are truly intending to see some more engagement in that area. That concludes my remarks. I forgot to be hitting my pictures. The home football stadium with the new elevated press box, the visitors' new bleachers, 750 capacity, the new concession stand, visitor side, restrooms as well, of course, and some storage facility. That's the new elevated press box at the soccer fields between fields number 1 and 2. And then you've seen this charts before. This represents the total diversity commitment and then the total diversity expenditures Winston Terrell provides us.
Any
I'd be
questions?
happy to respond to any questions.
Any questions, board?
I know,
Ms.
I
Lorf-Kruger.
know it's late. Just a couple of reminders. JEL, are we changing the footprint of the building? Are we adding on to that, or is it all internal?
Most of it is internal. We are tying into it. Currently, there was very limited connection between the high school and JEL. We are it's really going to be a dramatic kind of an arced corridor that will connect the high school with JEL.
Oh, right.
But there's no addition per se to the building.
We'll be expanding program from JEL over to Hilltop College.
Yes. Yes, on a temporary basis.
Thank you.
Ms. Fry?
Do you by any chance, what's the percent completion on Facebook? I just know it's so complicated.
Yeah, I know it is complicated. I'm going to say about 40%. It's intended to finish early to mid 26.
Stadium, we didn't replace the track.
Say again, I'm sorry.
We didn't replace the track.
We did that about 3 years ago.
Okay, it's been,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that was before we started with the resident work on this.
Right, I knew we'd done the turf. Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
was trying to. Can I make?
Mhm.
First of all, I do want to, as a North Central parent, I would like to reiterate the kudos on the start of the school year. this year. I mean, when we first saw those maps, it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
"Wow,
it's-
yeah, it's gonna work." But I was shocked, honestly. The first day, rough as always, but after that, how smoothly that has all run. And but also major kudos to some of the, Mr. Brent's gone, but some of the North Central staff who were out there in the mornings. Teachers are just killing it, in addition to all the Andy Frank.
Yeah.
The police department, it's been very pleasant, although I will share. As of yesterday, my daughter is now a licensed driver.
Yeah.
All my days of
Everybody watch out.
are soon to be over. And then I also just wanted to comment, I was at the football game on Friday. Really nice, and I'm making this comment too, though, really also for the purposes of the public. You know, I've brought it up before, I kind of chafe a little bit about saying a new stadium, right? Because it's new bleachers, it's new this, it's new that, but even when you look at that area, right? When I think stadium, I think of like a much bigger, more enclosed sort of.
Small stadium.
Small stadium. But what I did want to comment is that it is lovely. It feels very functional. The way people can move around is a lot nicer because of the kind of open space underneath that feels a lot less kind of claustrophobic and whatnot. But I also want to comment that it feels very functional. It feels very nice. It does not in any way feel fancy. It does not in any way feel excessive. People get so sensitive to hearing new stadium, I think, in the context of sports. You know, in general, I also just want to comment that, kudos to the fact that we improve those facilities so that they are better, so that they are more functional for our students, for our community, but in a way that I think is very consistent with our values as a district and as a community. It's not about Taj Mahals. It's not about, athletics, making it so fancy. I think it was a real slam dunk with the design and the implementation of giving our students in our community what they need and what they deserve, while also staying very consistent, being responsible to keep difference on academics, all that. So having seen it, gone up to the press box, the visitor sign, kind of walked through the whole thing.
You did all these things.
Just sharing some kudos on, I think you really hit that with the facility. So thank you for that.
As you know, a lot of people, a lot of input to that. So yeah, thank you on their behalf.
That's
So, and I know, oh, sorry, didn't make the 7:30, but I do have a couple of comments, and one is just the fact of getting through the elementary schools and the middle schools. That is, I mean, it doesn't seem like it does seem like it's long from your side of the house, but it's like, man, it's done. All right. And so I know from your side, I get it. But one of the things two things I want to say. One is about that is that even through all of that, even through all the renovations and, changing the classrooms, moving people around, obviously there's some, like, oh man, it's dirty in here. But I didn't really hear a whole lot of like, oh my goodness, this is the worst place to go work at, because you don't hear any safety concerns. I didn't hear any of those things. So kudos to the team and to the construction managers for getting that done with students in the building. The other comment, though, is on their last piece where you talk about workforce development, which is near and dear to what I do. I love hearing that. I know when we started this process, this construction, we were focused on getting people, construction is a big deal. They don't have enough people. How can we get students involved? But going to that next level, we have a lot of folks that do business in our district that we contract them. Some may not be large enough to, bring on a person and pay them, but there may be other things they can do to help get the students aware, help them be aware of what's out there for them. And it ties nicely into the grad pathways, if we can get somebody hired and working through your work-based learning coordinator. So that's a great idea. So whatever I can do personally from the work that I do during the day to support, just let me know. Because to me, that just excites me beyond what you know. Because I think there's a lot of opportunity for students. They just don't know what that is. And so this is a great way to get that out there to people. So appreciate that. Anything else, board? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
move that we adjourn.
Yeah. I didn't say adjourn, so it's okay. But I got an A and a second.
Okay, can we vote?
Aye.
Now, I want to wait. Let's have questions. Yeah, all those in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We're adjourned.